Kitty. All right, we're just going to go through that again. So fire up Animate. First thing you're going to do, of course, is go to ActionScript 3.0. And then here's the screen. All right, I'm just going to immediately do a save as and just call this spring demo. This is going to incorporate everything that the video went over except for the shape tween piece. If you remember, the shape tween was kind of, you know what, let me do the shape tween real quick. Let me just show you how that works, just a refresher. So the shape tween, if you remember, we just basically drew the shape on the canvas. Here's our properties palette. Just going to grab a stroke and fill color, have the stroke be nothing, the fill color be like this purple, and then I'm just going to draw this circle, hitting V for my direct selection tool and placing this over here somewhere in the canvas. Down the line here on frame 30 in my timeline, as you recall, I'm going to control click on the Mac and insert keyframe. Okay, so that's going to signify that I'm going to have a change in the artwork on the timeline. At this point, I'll move my circle to another spot. Maybe I can add some more shape to it. I'll do like a rectangle or something, just intersect it there. Maybe I can take this lasso tool. If you remember, this is like in Photoshop. Just kind of maybe grab a piece of it, go to the properties palette, change like a piece of the color, let's just say, and then let's see what happens with this. Shape tweens, as you probably remember, are basically like we have really no control over how this thing is going to look. So when I go to between these keyframes in the timeline and control click and select create shape tween, something is going to happen that we're going to kind of just be surprised with. And then, so that's the shape tween. So when I hit enter return, you can kind of see this animation shape happen in real time, okay? All right, so that's that sample. I'll just turn this off. Actually, I'll just delete it, make a new layer with this little symbol here, identical to Photoshop, delete it, and then clear out all these frames here, so remove frames. Okay, so that's the shape tween. Never really use that unless you really want to. So unless you don't mind giving up control, that's totally fine. One of the other things I wanted to show now, really the things that you're probably going to be using the most are the classic tweens. So I need to find something here. I had a picture that I grabbed that worked pretty well for that demo. Here it is. Alright, so I'm going to pull this in for demonstration purposes. And back to the interface here. As you remember, now I don't have anything on my canvas at all. I'll hit another save. I'm still in this Spring demo document. But under properties here, here's where I can kind of change the width and the height, right? So the assignment says 500 by 500. I can do, you know, I'm just saying at least 500 by 500. You can do 700 by 500 or something like that. Whatever works best for you on the piece. But essentially, I have just a JPEG. I have just a JPEG image. I'm going to drag it in. This is like a drag and drop here, JPEG. And the first thing I'm going to do once I drag it in is I'm going to go up to Modify, Transform, and Free Transform. Now you'll be able to see this little dot in the center here. That's the my anchor point. So any corner that I drag to resize it, it's going to anchor and drag towards this point. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just bring this over here and then drag this anchor point to the corner. And then I'm just going to scale this thing down to kind of fit somewhat the screen the way I want it to. I'm just nudging with my arrow keys, okay? This is my background I'm going to keep, and literally that's all I want this thing for. So um, just one more thing, when you drag something in, any kind of asset, if you're not going to do a shape tween, which what I'm going to say is probably almost 99% of the time, if you have an image or something, you're not going to do anything but a classic tween. Control click that image that you drag in, and then you want to convert it to a symbol down here in your pop-up menu. And then under the type for symbol, just hit movie clip and then hit OK. And that's all you got to do. You're never going to really have to worry about this again. The only thing I am going to worry about is actually extending this artwork through many frames towards the bottom, so I can really define the length of my movie. So I'm going to go to frame approximately 100 here, and I'm going to control click that, and I'm going to insert just a regular frame. This is going to basically copy the artwork between that I have on this keyframe. Remember, the dot represents the keyframe where I change in the artwork. I'm just going to extend that all the way out to frame like 100, okay? And then I'm just going to rename this layer background. Background. Okay. So I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to lock it up so that it doesn't mess me up in the future. As I'm clicking around the screen, I don't want to accidentally select it and move things, because this is really where I want it to be static. Next thing I want to do is create some isolated flowers, okay? So I'm going to take this artwork and actually bring it to Photoshop. And then just, you're all experts in Photoshop probably at this point, so basically I'm just going to do a quick and easy selection on this. I'm going to do like a 20% tolerance with the Magic Wand tool. I'm going to hit some of this white space here and let it kind of select. Not all of it is selected, as you can see, kind of around the edges. So I'm just going to take my lasso tool here, and I'm going to hold the shift key so I can see that my lasso now has a little plus sign on it. And then I'm going to add to the selection, just like that, just to kind of clean up these little areas here that did not get selected with my wand, including this little stem piece here. It didn't get that well done. There we go. Okay, and that's it. Now I'm just going to delete, deselect, the Command D, image trim. This is a quick crop here. Under image trim, I'm just going to select transparent pixels and trim away top, bottom, left, right. Okay. So trims it perfectly to the pixel there, and then I'm just going to do a save as, and then to save this piece of content, I'm going to choose PNG file because I want to make sure that I maintain the transparency, because I have a background there and I want to make sure that that background comes through this piece. So give it a little name there, save, and OK. All right, everyone following along so far? Pretty good so far? Okay. Now, here's where we're going to kind of have some more fun. I'm just going to make sure that in Animate, I have my flower layer selected, and I have this frame. It's empty because it has like that blank circle here, okay? It's empty, so I'm going to make sure that my playhead is over that, and I select the frame. Now I'm going to drag in this file, okay, and now I'm just going to size it to something reasonable, move out a little bit, and then I'm going to put it off of the stage, okay. This pasteboard looking area is known as the stage here, and so that's just kind of, you know, sort of a semantics thing. So with it off of the stage, I'm going to control click and then I'm going to control click and then do a convert to symbol again, so it's the first thing that I'll do, and then hit OK. Again, it's kind of a habit thing to get into. So with that done, I want to make this thing kind of move into the scene, but I want it to kind of move around a little bit too. So one thing that the video did show was a clipping or like a motion path. So to do that, you're going to go Control-click on this layer, and then you're going to do Add Classic Motion Guide. And then now you can see that there's a guide :flowers layer created over the flowers layer, and then flowers is indented, okay? So what I'm going to do is actually use the pen tool to draw the path at which I'd like this flower piece to move along in time, okay? So what I'm going to do is actually just click on this guide flowers layer, and I'm going to click on this pen tool, and then I'm just going to start drawing the path at which I'd like this flower to kind of be moving around, okay? So it's going to be kind of swerving in and out here just like so. So what I'm going to do next is actually select a flower, and you can see the whole flower's piece on the timeline is selected. And I'm going to move this around. You're going to see this little black dot in the middle, right over the center of it. And when I move it close to the tip of this line, it actually kind of snaps, okay? I'm going to snap that there. And then I'm going to go down like further, maybe in the middle of this timeline, like at the 35 point. And then I'm going to actually Control-click and insert a keyframe here. So at this point, again, insert keyframe means a change in the art, so I'm going to move that change of the art to only be a change in position on the canvas. So I moved it up. Now, I don't have any tweens going on here, so what you're going to see is one click. This whole entire piece here is going to be on one end of the line, and this piece is going to be on the other. What you're going to have to do is actually click on this piece in between here in the timeline, and then hit Control, click, and then create a classic tween. And then this annoying box is going to pop up. So what's happening here is that the tween is made, so it's moving from point A to point B, but it's not clicked at the line properly. So I'm going to try it again. I'm going to move it and make sure that it snaps. Make sure that this software is understanding where I'm trying to go with this. And then try it again. Oh, that didn't work that time either. Select oh, is that yeah, usually it works that way. Let me see if I can. For some reason it's snapping too quickly. Let me try it. Oh, okay. It was snapped there. Let me just delete this line and see if I can redo that. Let's see, clear. Try it again. So let's try it again. So I have this animating from one place to the other. I'm going to do my pen tool again and try it. It looks like it locked up. Nope, it just kind of... Let's see. Let me jump out of that. Okay. Let's see. Oh, man. Oh. Okay. It just took some fussing around. But basically, that's how it really works. Okay. So once that kind of gets locked in, it'll just kind of stick. So at this point, you can kind of just hide this guide layer just by clicking this little eyeball here, point, and then I kind of scrub it back and forth just to make sure that it's still working okay, because it is a little fussy. But one of the things that you can do is kind of define then, once it's locked in, you can jump to this next keyframe and then say you wanted to kind of further add to this animation. So maybe I can actually modify the size of it, so I can free transform, let's say, and then just pull it larger. So theoretically, it would kind of grow from the bottom. So in the beginning, it's small, and it grows to be large. You can also kind of let me just kind of nudge this up a little bit so it's out of the frame completely. And then see now every move you make, as I nudged it, I didn't take into account that this would actually move. So let me just undo that a couple times, see if I can bring it back to where it was. Okay, I'll leave it like that. So actually, yeah, that's fine. So what I'll do is actually go into this. No, I'm actually going to duplicate this animation. So I'm going to actually create 2 new layers. And this is kind of where it's going to get a little bit complicated. I am going to create those 2 new layers. And I'm going to actually cut some of these frames out the back end here. Remove those, and let me just see if I still got it going. Good. Okay, so created 2 new layers, and I'm actually going to select this block of art in the timeline, and I'm going to hold Option. I'm going to click and drag. So now I can kind of layer these kind of animations together, so they've got 2 going on at the same time. But what I'm going to do is actually maybe select all of this artwork and then compress it a little bit. So did you see I kind of selected the entire line and I'm dragging it at the end, just very much like you could with like a spreadsheet column or something like that. And then with it entirely selected, I can actually nudge this whole block of art somewhere around here like this. So it can kind of come in at a different angle, something like that. So it'll be like, let's just say I wanted to position it here. And I can run the test again. I'll scrub it so they're both moving as expected. And then I can hide this flower layer again, this motion guide again, just by clicking that eyeball piece. So now I got kind of 2. I didn't have to build it out or go through all that trouble I went through earlier again. See how this one kind of disappears right here? I'm just going to extend that artwork so it actually, well, you know what? I'll do that later. That'll be my finishing touch. I'll do some more. I'll just kind of duplicate this again. Let's see. Oh, let me try that again. There we go. And then I'll just, again, just kind of click, select them, drag, Alt, Option, drag. Kind of stagger it in time. Let's see, select all of this artwork by shift clicking and then nudge it around again. Well, hopefully that carried with. I think it will. And then kind of test it, make sure everything's moving properly, which it wasn't. And so let me see. I'll have to grab this. At this point, it's going to be like here. And at this point, it needs to be, let's see, let's see if that, here we go. All right, and then one more time. I'm actually going to drag this up a little bit so I can see it better. Definitely turn that off, the guide layer again for that new one. And then just one more group. We're going to end up having a lot of flowers on here. Just drag it again. Bring it down. Scrub it to test. See if everything's moving along the paths, which looks fine. And that one's moving too. Let's move this on the canvas now. So instead of in time, now I'm going to nudge it again a couple times around and do a scrub to see if anything is still working. It's not, so I'm going to have to Again, reclip this to the path. Oh, okay. All right, there we go. And turn off that line. All right. So at this point, I can actually go to Control and test the movie, and then here's what I have so far, what it would look like. Okay, it kind of goes and it plays all the way through, and then the last bit of it really just sticks for a little too long. That's when it hits this point about, and then it kind of just drags on for a while to frame 100. You can just kind of clip those out. So I'll just select all of that stuff on the timeline and then just control click and then remove frames. And then do another test to see if the length is okay till it recycles again, which is good. Then you can see that things are disappearing on the canvas. So what Animate does with the FLV file is it basically starts, stops, restarts again. So it goes in this constant infinite loop. You actually have to tell it to stop at a certain point, which helps with interactivity too. So I'm going to show you all that. The first thing I'm going to do is prevent all of those little flowers from turning themselves off. So to do that, you just select all the layers where you see gaps here between the beginning and the end. So I can just go all the way down, shift click all of these frames so they're all nice and neat in a line, control click, and then insert frame. So that's going to fill in the artwork for all those pieces. Again, do another test. And just test often and then make sure that everything is acting properly. So at this point it's acting properly because all of the content is within the frame moving properly, and then also it finishes at the same time and then it recycles at the same time. So that's what I'm looking for at this point. Now what you want to do, I mean if you want to do this, is really I can go in. And since I duplicated the same symbol in the library, under properties, you can see that this is a movie clip symbol. And it was duplicated in the timeline here, so they're all kind of interconnected. If I just double click into this, if you remember, you can actually create a timeline within the timeline, okay, the major timeline. So our major timeline has all the flowers kind of going zigzagging into the scene. And so that's what that main purpose of that timeline is. The main purpose of this timeline is to actually have the flowers doing something individually on their own, while still moving through that zigzag line on the original. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to select one of those objects, and then I'm going to, in the timeline, do a control click and then insert a keyframe, and I'm just kind of willy-nilly. Actually, no, hold on. First thing you got to do is actually create a movie clip of this content within the movie clip. So convert to symbol, and then make sure that it's selected as a movie clip. Because again, this turns into a graphic symbol when I click inside of it from the main timeline. You have to turn it back into a movie clip symbol to make it do the rotations and all that other stuff. Basically a classic tween. So just trying to get in the habit. If you're going to do a new animation with any object that uses anything but a shape tween, which is the thing that probably isn't, you have zero control over it essentially, then just get in the habit of converting it to that symbol. So I once again created a symbol of the object within the actual symbol itself. And you could see where I'm at in the depth of the content. So I'm in this symbol 2, and then if I hit back to scene 1, this is my main timeline. This is kind of a nice clue too. So again, main timeline, double click to jump into the symbol, to click on the graphic within the symbol, and then convert it to the movie clip symbol by control clicking and selecting convert to symbol, and then movie clip in the drop down. So now I'm going to frame 10, and then I'm now inserting a keyframe just like that. At this keyframe, I'm going to actually make this thing kind of rotate. So I'm just going to kind of drag it around and then just kind of see what happens. I'm going to control click and then create the classic tween and then see that rotate like that. And then just do like another rotate here. So I'll insert another keyframe. And then let's see what it looks like here. Okay. Another keyframe, and then I'll make it rotate again. So it should look identical from beginning to end. And then create a classic tween there. Oh, it kind of bounces back. That's okay, I'll just make it do that. And then another one I wanted to maybe do is actually this middle ground here. I want to like select it and change the properties a little more by going into under color effect. You can see this style drop down, and then you can go like advanced or something like that, or even like tint. You can give it like any kind of tint you want. Or you can change the individual color channels like you would in Photoshop or something to change maybe like the color tint of it. It's a little bit, yeah, something like that. So kind of go. So theoretically, it's going to go from like blue to pink to I'm sorry, pink to blue to pink again. All right. So that's that animation within that animation. I'm going to jump back into the main timeline, and I'm going to actually hit return to see it kind of go, but you're going to notice that they're not actually doing the spin animation piece. You actually have to go and test it like you would earlier. So under control and test, this is again going to generate the FLV file, and then it's just going to test this thing. In real time, this is how it would look like in real life, whatever. You know, when you upload it to a website or whatnot. It's just a working file. This is just for, you know, demonstration purposes only. So at this point, you know, let's just start creating the actions, okay? So I showed you the shape tween really briefly earlier. I showed you the classic tween, the motion guide path using the classic tween, so from point A to point B following the path. That's a little bit of a fussy one, so just be patient with that. I showed you using a PNG file and a JPEG file, really just dragging and dropping them onto the canvas, and then frames and keyframes. So keyframes, creating a keyframe is what you would do when you want to change the artwork, make it animate in some way, shape, or form, color, etc. And a regular frame is just duplicating the artwork on the timeline, right? Here's the keyframe, and then inserting just a regular frame is just going to continue this artwork from the keyframe from one point to the other in time. Okay. Also showed you how to create a movie clip symbol out of a piece of content that you drop in. Remember, you have to convert it to a symbol and select movie clip to create a classic tween in the piece. All right. What else did we go through? Okay, now we're going to go through the action script piece of it. So what I'm going to show you first, the first action and the most commonly used one is the stop action, okay? So I'm going to have this video stop at frame 1 because when we open it, I don't want it to really do anything. I just want it to stop until I, as a user, am enabled to click on something to tell it to do something. So simple stop action is clicking on frame 1, and that's where I want my frame to stop. Going to Window and Actions, and literally this is going to write the stuff for you, so all the code. So you can click on this code snippets piece, and then under Action Script, this little Action Script folder, and Timeline Navigation, stop at this frame is your option. You just double click on it, and then it's going to populate all of this text into this actions box here, and it's basically the code box. This is the only piece of ActionScript code that the software needs to actually stop at the specific frame that you placed the action on. So remember when I clicked on that first frame, I defined in the timeline where I want the piece to stop, okay? I clicked on frame 1, went up to actions, placed the code in there, and then it's actually going to stop at frame 1. Now, how can I tell visually is that it's going to add this actions layer at the very top of your timeline when I added the action, and it has this like lowercase a here. So this tells me I have an action here on frame 1, and when I click on that, I'll be able to see all this copying and I'll see, I have a stop action here. All of this text up top here is literally just kind of text to show you or kind of give you sort of basic instruction on how to use these actions that you placed in here and what this thing is. So stop at this frame. The animate timeline will stop pause at the frame where you inserted this code. Can also be used to stop pause the timeline of movie clips. Okay, so what it's saying is if I wanted to, let's say, stop that flower from spinning at the end of that individual timeline within the movie clip, I could add a stop action there. So let me just show you what this thing looks like right now with the stop action on frame 1. And if I go to control and test again, that's what it looks like. It's doing absolutely nothing, which is great because before it was kind of going all crazy. So I want it to be really calm and I want it to stop right here. Now, let me do a button, okay? This button is going to be a very simple text button. And really, I'm just going to click and drag. Oh, shoot, I'm on my actions layer. I don't want to do that. I want to actually create a new layer under the actions layer so I don't get anything confused, okay? So, created that, and then just on frame 1, I'll draw my text box out, and then create the button. We'll create the text that's going to become a button. So just place that there. It's default font color. Under properties, with my text selected, my properties panel is going to change quite a bit. It's going to look more like a, the font panel or type panel in Illustrator or Photoshop or something like that. If I click on the color, I can actually get this eyedropper. You can see it. I can actually even sample a color from the canvas to change it too, so I can really easily match this text. Okay, something like that. Let's see. Make this text bigger if I wanted to under properties. I'll just drag this point sizing up and stretch my box out, make it look kind of all on one line, okay? At this point, I need to actually convert this to a button. So it's the same process as creating a movie clip symbol, okay? Except I'm going to choose button instead of movie clip. You can, just an FYI, make any movie clips clickable just like you would a button clickable, okay? All you do is just, movie clips and buttons work the same way, except a button is a little different in that you can define a rollover and stuff a lot easier than you could a movie clip symbol, and you can also define a hit state a lot easier. So typically, when I'm doing buttons, if the button needs to have some really detailed animations like a spin or a color change like the flower did, then I would make it a movie clip, and then I would make the movie clip into an interactive piece. If it needs to be just simple text with a rollover, then you can make it use the button symbol property, and I'll show you how to do that. Just go do your control click and then go down to convert to symbol, and then instead of movie clip here under type, it'll just be button. So I'm just going to hit the button and then hit OK. So why is this going to be easier? It just looks exactly the same. Again, I'm going to double click this piece to go into the piece of content, and now you can see that in the timeline I have just these 4 boxes in total actually, which define the states of the button. Okay, so there's an up state, which is I don't have my cursor over it. The over state, I do have my cursor over it. My down state, I have just clicked on this button. Here's what it looks like. And my hit state, this is the area at which the button is clickable. Okay, so under over, I'm just going to overstate here in the timeline. I'm just going to control click and insert a keyframe, just like I would any other piece of content where I define a change in the artwork to begin animating something. On this overstate, I'm just going to then select this text and then under properties just pick something that's going to be my overstate. I can get kind of specific with the color if I wanted to by selecting a color wheel. If I was really picky, you could do that. So I'll just get picky with it and do that. Then you want to remember the hit state. So I'm going to skip the down state for a second, and I'm going to go straight over to the hit state, and I'm going to control click that and then insert keyframe here. So what this is saying now is that the shape of the individual letters are clickable, okay, on the button. Now let me just put that into practice here and show you. I'll save it and then do a control and test. Okay, so as I'm rolling over this thing, you can see that I have my hit state, active and so on. It's rolling over. I have to get kind of close to the text to kind of make it clickable, okay? If I wanted the hit state to be, if I wanted the area of this to be larger, or i.e. if I wanted this to have a larger click area, like let's say the entire canvas, let me just then, under my hit state, click on my rectangle tool and then just literally draw a rectangle over this entire thing. And then go back. And now I'm going to do test. So now my whole entire screen has the hit state on it. And now you can see that even when I roll over this very edge, you can see the over or the over state of the text getting active here. And so you can essentially make the entire ad clickable and make it kind of stand out more. I'll just leave it at that because that's fine. Yeah. Yep. So literally just going to the piece that I converted to the button symbol, this little text area here, this text, I'm just double clicking it. And then it jumps into the button. And then now I'm seeing all of the states. All right, and then I can even edit this hit state if I wanted to go back and say, you know what, that was too large, and then hit test again. And then I'm back to making this button kind of tighter to the text. All right, so any questions so far? All right. We're almost there. So how do we make this thing, more interactive instead of me just testing this movie, having a blank screen, and then having this text kind of roll over like that? What we're going to do is actually click on this button and then give it an instance name, okay? So under the Properties panel, the Spring Start button, I have to give it a unique name to make it interactive and to make it do something so let me just give it a name, Spring here. So the rules for the naming are just that it has to be, all text needs to be compressed together, and you could separate it with underscores like this, for instance, but it has to be all one seamless piece of our line of text. Okay, so I just named it spring_btn, save. Click this button again, and what I'm going to do is then go to Actions again. So I'm going to go under Window, Actions again, now you can see here that up above it says button 1. So I know that Animate knows that I have my button selected. Do we see the stop action in this panel at all? No, we don't, because we don't have this line of code for the actions selected. We have just this button layer selected now, okay? So basically, just clicking on this, this code snippets icon here, these two carets, under action script, let's see, it's timeline navigation, and then it's click to go to frame and play. So right now the video stopped at frame 1. Once we open this piece, I'm going to double click to go to frame and play. So here it shows me Spring BTN. It's going to add event listener, which is mouse event click, so it's waiting for my mouse to click, and then it's going to do this go to frame and play. Alright. What are my instructions saying up here? Basically, instruction 1, replace the number 5 in the code below with the frame number you would like. Let me just move this over a bit. The playhead to move when the symbol instance is clicked. Okay. Now, here's the 5 that they were talking about, and I just need to replace this number 5 with the frame number that I want this to go to, excuse me, when clicked. That's it. So it's just going to go to frame 2, go to and play frame 2, which is important, the and play, because you can tell it to go to a frame and stop. You can tell it to go to frame and play. So let me close that off. You don't really have to save or anything before you test. You just pop the code in there and it's going to save. So again, the movie stopped. I'm going to click and it's going to go to frame 2 and play. Now what happens? It plays through the entire movie and then it goes to back to frame 1 and stops again. All right. So let's do a test again. Goes through the entire movie, and then it stops, and then it goes to frame 1, and then stops again. Doesn't stop, it actually just resets to frame 1 again. It goes in that infinite loop, okay? And then I can infinitely click this thing if I wanted to. Alright, so let's do, let's make it then stop at the end, okay? So we want it to play all the way through and then stop at the end. Well, I'm going to go to the end of where I want my movie to stop, which is frame 60 here. Or wait, what is it? I'm sorry, it's 62. You can see the actual frame that you're on. Just underneath here at the very bottom is this teeny tiny number. So just click on the very last end of the video you want it to be. Go under Window Actions again. Go under your code snippets. Go under Action Script, Timeline Nav. Double click. And we should be good to go. Double click that stop action, sorry. And control test. Playing in and out. Goes to the end and stops. Does it stop the flowers from moving? No. Because those individual animations, if you remember, are on that constant loop. Okay, they're in that infinite loop within themselves, right? So remember when we said the stop animation, or the stop tween animation could be done on the main timeline, but then also individual symbols timelines, okay? So what I'm going to do is just find one of these, flower symbols here. Click to see if I can find one. Here it is. So I can double click it and see its timeline. What I can do is just click on the very last frame, let's just say, and then I'm going to say Window Actions, and I'm going to go to that code snippets, timeline navigation, and I'm going to say just stop. So this, if it worked right, should stop all of the flowers in their tracks when they are done spinning. Okay, and they're all going to stop at different times because if you remember, when they stop in their individual timelines, they play out in different times here. So theoretically, they're going to all stop at different times. So let's just make sure to see that happens. Yeah, so they're all kind of stopping at different times. So I don't know. I don't like it. I think I'm going to, you know, switch it back. Well, that's fine. I'm just going to leave it like that. Maybe I'll undo. Let's see if that works. Let's see. Control test. Yeah, it's still stuck. That's all right. All right. Let me. Oh, sorry. I keep clicking the wrong thing. What I can actually probably do is go to actions and then just delete the stop action altogether. See what that does. There we go. I like it better. It's kind of crazy, but that's fine. So, any questions so far, like how this is working and stuff? Now, this button, since you can see the artwork here is all the way through, it's consistent throughout, okay? This button, actually from beginning to end here, is one solid piece of art that is interactive, that every time I click on it, no matter where I'm at on the timeline, it is going to go to frame 2 and then play. So let me test it out. When the movie is in the middle of its play mode, I'm going to click it at any time, and it's going to just keep recycling back and back and back all the time. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, that because this piece of art here extends through the entirety of the timeline and it has that property, anytime I click on it, no matter what, it will go to the frame that I defined and do what I defined it to do, and then stop when it's supposed to at a certain time, okay? In the main timeline, or in its individual timeline. So if you were to have multiple buttons in your timeline that extended throughout the entire timeline, you could create like an entire navigation menu or something like that. Not really ideal for something like this, but it's possible essentially. Finally, I want to show you some of the other actions that they have, okay? So under actions and code snippets, there's other actions too where you can set something to click to go to a web page. And then essentially you can type in, just look at the instructions. You can type in a URL of your choice, and then that piece of content will jump to a web page for you. Click stop a movie clip. All of these different things, you know, you can essentially do in here. Most of it is stop. Most of it is click to go to frame and stop, or click to go to frame and play, etc. All right. But you have all these, you know, different menus and stuff here too, audio, video, and stuff like that. You can click to play sounds and all this other good stuff. So you can actually import sounds into your library here and have them play when they're clicked on, essentially, stuff like this. Or you can have like music playing throughout in the back. A little bit difficult to work with the music though, because when you drag the music in, there's no real way within here to actually cut it to a length that you want it to. You have to kind of do that outside and then bring it in. All right. I'm going to save this for you, and then I'm going to